So I listened to Kirk today. I wasn't there in person, but I kind of got that feel. Now he's never going to say that the season is lost, but I do feel like he's a little more relaxed now with the quarterback situation because I think he realizes that, like, it's just human nature, regardless of who Kirk Ferentz is. I think he realizes that their goals are in large part lost, and obviously, he's going to say that the focus is Maryland, but yeah, I mean, we don't really know who's going to play quarterback. It's kind of good to hear that Marco Lainez is back. And frankly, and this is nothing against Cade McNamara, but when the news broke, Matt Zenitz of On Three, no, I'm sorry, Matt Zenitz of CBS Sports and 247 Sports yesterday tweeted out that Brendan Sullivan would be out for the season. I was told by a source yesterday after that news broke that the official word was 4 to 6 weeks, and then Kirk kind of made fun of that tweet from Zenitz today during his press conference. He's like, "Well, there's only 2 weeks left, so out for the season. What does that mean?" So he's not out for the bowl game necessarily. Kirk kind of cast some shadow of a doubt on that. I know what I was told from a source is that Brendan, at least as of last week, was hopeful that he could be back for Nebraska. I think it's very unlikely based on everything, not just what Kirk said, the reports out there, but um, 4 to 6 weeks was the initial estimation on that ankle. As Kirk mentioned today, nothing broken there. Cade McNamara is cleared, but Kirk brought up, like, we don't know how the kid's going to play. And if he's rattled, like if he's not 100%, then I just don't know. I want the kid to have a good finish to his career. And we thought maybe we'd seen the last of him already. But at this point, there's nothing to play for other than bowl positioning and pride and some individual awards. So, I mean, I know I sound like I did a month ago when I was vying for Brendan Sullivan, but to an even greater extent now, I'd like to see Jackson Stratton. But let's add to that, I'd like to see Marco Lainez in real action. Because is Jackson Stratton the future? I mean, probably not. Could Marco Lainez be the future? Maybe. I know there's a lot of people out there that believe that Marco's just going to dip into the portal. And I have not spoken with Marco's camp about that. I know some people are, I'm sure, doing that actively, trying to figure out what these kids are going to do. I think in general, it's good to wait till the end of the season before you start asking those types of sources, those types of questions. The kid's coming off a thumb injury. I was surprised that Kirk said he was good to go this week. Last I had heard, it was a broken thumb. Now, I don't know if that was left or right thumb. So obviously that makes a difference. He's a right-handed quarterback, and he's also a guy who likes to run and become a running back. But the good news is it sounds like they got some depth this week. But I hope the best for Cade. I hope he's healthy, but I don't want to see him play. I have no interest in seeing him play, Mark. None. I have no interest in seeing Iowa gash Maryland, beat him by 40. I don't care. That doesn't make a difference to me. I know that sounds cruel and harsh, but it doesn't do anything for me. It does nothing for me. Would I like to see them win? Yes. I don't want to see them lose, but it doesn't do anything in the grand scheme of things. What could do something in the grand scheme of things is to see another quarterback who might be on the roster next year get his feet under him and give some energy and some hopefulness to this fan base to where a point where you're not totally reliant on the transfer portal in the offseason to give you a glimmer of hope at quarterback. I think there is a glimmer of hope at quarterback with the return of Sullivan next year, assuming he sticks around. But let's see something from, hey, if it's Jackson Stratton, fine. If it's Marco Lainez, fine. But playing Cade McNamara does nothing for me right now. It might do something for some people out there who want to see the guy end his career on a good note. But based on what I've been told, he made plenty of money to come here and ride the bench. So I don't really feel bad for the guy. Like, he's been hurt. I feel bad from an injury, from a health standpoint. That's unfortunate. And certainly, if he's got a concussion and he's at risk of re-injury, he shouldn't be playing anyways. But I'm ready to see the next guy and the guy after that and the guy after that. If they were in contention for a Big Ten championship, no. I just want them to play the best guy, whether that's Cade or whether it's Marco or someone else. But they're not. So let's see who's young and ready to go. Let's see the upside and the potential, the ceiling. And, against a Maryland defense, it's probably not a bad defense to go up against for a young quarterback.
Agreed on all points. Now, when Kirk, for those of you who did not see or hear today's news conference, if I recall, and correct me, Corey, if I'm wrong, I just watched it. It seemed as though somebody had started down the path of the quarterback situation with the assumption that since Cade McNamara was cleared, that he would be the starter. And Kirk had to correct them to basically say, it's not quite that simple. And that even though the recently released depth chart does have McNamara number one, Kirk said that if they played today, that Jackson Stratton would be the starter. And so my initial read on that was, okay, is he telling us that he's expecting McNamara to beat him out later this week? That technically speaking, McNamara has not practiced enough yet to reclaim the job, but he's fully expecting him to do so. But then the more he talked about it, the more I thought maybe he's going along the lines that you just outlined, that he's thinking, hey, we need to ready these quarterbacks and see what we've got, especially since he certainly complimented what Jackson Stratton accomplished against UCLA. And it's not a situation where it's like, okay, well, we can either play Cade McNamara and that's a dead end because of the experience and the eligibility running out versus this guy that we know nothing about what he's going to do when the bullets fire. No, he showed us something against UCLA. Why not try to build on that and give him the extended time to see if he can show us even more?
I would like to see them use both Stratton and Linez and use this game as sort of an audition for both of those guys and use next week as an audition for both of those guys. Like, those are the guys who are healthy. If Cade's not 100%, then it's even more reason to go down that road. Now, that's not necessarily historically a Kirk thing to do, to audition quarterbacks. In fact, it goes very much against the grain of what Kirk Ferentz has inherently stands for. Now, maybe here's a couple possibilities here. Perhaps Kirk uh, said what he said today regarding Cade not being the presumed starter at this point, as a sort of kind of in spite of what was reported on Monday. Because you get the feeling Kirk hates that kind of thing. And he kind of made that clear today when a national reporter comes in and swipes a story like that, breaks it on Monday, one day prior to his press conference. Kirk acknowledged he wrote up the depth chart Sunday. The report then came out Monday. So either things have really changed and, Cade kind of went backwards Monday from a health/football standpoint, or Kirk's kind of wanting to give it back at that reporter who broke that a day before his press conference. It was even before the depth chart release yesterday. So there's a possibility there. And the other possibility, I think, is maybe Kirk has learned from, the first guy that comes to my mind, and this is maybe a bad example because he's done nothing since he's left Iowa. But I remember the Carson May thing a couple of years ago when Iowa was going into the bowl game with Joe Labus and Carson May didn't get any run in the bowl game. I thought that was dumb, right? It's another bowl game that means nothing nationally. Obviously, Iowa takes pride in bowl games, and not saying you shouldn't, but at least play the kid, give him a chance. And I know there's been talk, well, Carson already had one foot into the portal at that point. Okay, who cares? Play the kid and let him see what he can do. If he goes somewhere else, fine. Wish him luck. But maybe he really takes off and you can convince him to stay. But that's not historically been the attitude. So maybe Kirk's learned from that, or maybe Tim Lester, maybe he'll have a real impact. Like he gives Kirk his advice, like, Kirk, I really think we need to focus in on Jackson and or Marco, and maybe he's kind of agreeable to that notion, and so maybe that has an impact on Kirk. But at the same time, Mark, what may end up happening, as Kirk acknowledges, is Friday comes and they feel good with Cade, and he plays the whole game, plays the rest of the season, and we never see Stratton or Linez the rest of the way. Linez hops in the portal at the end of the year. Stratton may or may not return as a walk-on who wants to be a scholarship and as a former FBS scholarship player. That's possible as well. So we'll just have to wait and see. I just hope for the fan base, for my own interest level, and for the future of the offense, the pass offense, that we get to see someone other than Cade McNamara on Saturday.
For the future of the offense, yes. And now, if this was playing out in a different era, just 3 or 4 years ago, then you would think that the lean would be even more heavily toward playing the younger guys to prepare them for next season. And because they would be the guys battling for the job along with Brendan Sullivan coming back. But with the transfer portal, Iowa could be banking on an addition there. And of course, we'll have an entire offseason to deal with that. But the portal does open. Is it immediately after the season's over? I don't remember the adjusted portal window. I know that it's been reduced from 30 to 15 days, but we'll have to look into that. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say real quick. Yeah, you're right. It's opens for business on December 9th. And I mentioned that yesterday. It's less than a month now. So basically after championship week, right? Right after championship week, and the portal window opens, and it's down to 20 days. So players, not that they took a long time to hop in the portal as it was, but they're going to get in there a little faster this time around. And there's already players, obviously, that have announced. You got the kid from, is it BC that's in there? I don't know how you pronounce his last name, but he'd be a guy that obviously there's going to be teams after him, given what he did there. But the good news is it should be an interesting offseason with Leicester. I think there's going to be a level of aggression that we haven't seen offensively. I mean, what kind of aggression did Brian Ferentz take to the portal at skill position spots? I mean, what kind of level of aggression could he have taken? And let's not forget, they added Sullivan after Leicester was hired. But, I mean, Cade was added when Brian Ferentz was still there. And there was a period of time where we talked about this, Mark. Iowa hadn't hired an offensive coordinator yet. And so that makes it difficult to be attractive to a potential skill position player, not just because of the history of that offense, but you don't know where it's going to go. We don't even know what it's going to look like. So now, at least, assuming they retain Tim Lester, they can hit hard at quarterback, and they'll hit at other key positions as well. And then some of that's dependent on who stays and who leaves. So it's going to be a very interesting offseason, maybe more interesting of an offseason than we've seen during this era of portal NIL stuff at Iowa. I mean, they've had interesting ads. Obviously, the Cade thing blew up, but a lot of teams they're knee deep in the portal every year, and this may be the first year we see Iowa knee deep.
Yeah, we're going to have a fast and furious end to the season, both on the field and off the field, with National Signing Day moved up 2 weeks to Wednesday, December 4th. It's usually been, even this early signing day that just started 6 or 7 years ago, been in mid-December, but it's moved up 2 weeks to December 4th. Championship games that weekend, college football playoff selections going out on Sunday, and then the portal opens on Monday. Yeah, bowl invitations going out, the whole deal. It's and then of course that Sunday following the last regular season, Saturday opens up a floodgates of coaching firings that create the domino effect of then hirings to fill those spots and guys leaving other jobs. That just creates this groundswell of movement all over the country. Fascinating.
Hey, I think what's fascinating, here's a Big Ten connection guy that landed at least an interim job. I didn't realize that Tim Brewster was on that Charlotte staff. So that's kind of interesting. He's taken over for what's his face that wears the muscle shirts, big guy. I can't remember his name, but so Brewster's got a chance at, he was coached at Minnesota. If people don't remember his tenure there, he's known as a tight ends guy. He's filling in. There's a number of open positions. It's amazing, not counting some really solid FCS programs like UNI, Northern Iowa. Mark Farley announced he's retiring. He's one of the longest tenured FCS coaches. And obviously they've had a lot of success both in that conference and nationally.